Thank you very much for this introduction. I have to live up to it now. But basically, listening to the speakers before, I was fascinated by the rapid advances in artificial intelligence, in engineering, in human creativity. And we're born curious. We want to know what is beyond the horizon, beyond our atmosphere, in space, on the moon, Mars, the stars. So we develop ways to get there. We're very good at doing that. Then what? Engineers, of course, cleverly designed spacecraft to carry the humans to the new destination. And then we expect the humans to live, work, return to Earth, and recover. Is this what happens? How soon after going into space do you think health problems appear? The answer is immediately. What kind of changes? Dehydration. Your blood volume in space is 10 to 20% less than on Earth, very rapidly. Disorientation, nausea, no sense of up or down, sometimes vomiting that may last 4 days. Bone and muscle loss, the heart grows smaller, circulation responds to the shift in blood upward, the heart gets smaller over time, blood vessel lining deteriorates, body rhythms and sleep are disturbed. Every cell in the body is affected, if not through the physiological systems, through mechanical loss of the impact of gravity forces. And what causes these changes? My favorite is the gravity level. And the gravity level in space is below threshold. And we need to remember how important the threshold is. In other words, what is sensed and needed for health on Earth. So leaving Earth is not a simple thing. Gas-filled balloons and airplanes were the first to be tried. And, pretty soon, we were clever enough to go into space. Getting there is one thing. Living and working there is quite another. We landed on the moon in 1969 and returned 4 times by 1972. We forget that. We think only of the first landing on the moon. But we have not been back since. I was there at NASA from the start, and with the first Mercury flights, we had no idea what to expect. We knew from animal flights that they could survive. That's all. We just had not appreciated how extremely important Earth was to our being alive, staying alive, and staying healthy. But we should have. After all, we are born from the microgravity of our mother's womb, born into a world of 1G, and we are supposed to live in. We come equipped with rapidly regenerating cells, sensors, a neural system, and support systems, and yet it takes time to reach a fully adapted state. And that's at the peak of development around 20. We have learned so much about our health and continue to learn by leaving Earth and going into space. We have come to appreciate, for instance, how crucial Earth's gravity was to our evolution, our continuing health, and its role. And we went into space away from Earth's atmosphere, where it's an alien environment. Humans cannot survive unprotected in space. So technologies, spacesuits, microecosystems were developed to protect and sustain life. And in all these journeys, we have to be close enough to Earth to communicate and to be able to resupply. On Mars, it will take 20 minutes for a message from Earth to reach it, and another 20 minutes for a reply. A cell phone would not be much use. It takes months for a spacecraft to reach Mars. Planning for such a mission is very different from a mission in Earth orbit, or even from going to the moon. When you cannot readily resupply food, water, and life support, or find water or food from local resources, you have to rethink and plan differently. Our next generation will have to discover how to help humans live and work away from Earth. Is living on the moon easier or harder, do you think, than living in Earth orbit? The good news is there is more gravity on the moon, 1/6 Earth's gravity. That is probably just less of our gravity threshold. Why do I say that? Well, because we guessed that, if you remember, the Apollo astronauts were upright on the moon, but could not walk. They hopped around instead of walking. There may be water on the moon. The bad news is that moon dust gets into everything. The suit, the eyes, the lungs, the dust is made of iron and other metals and sharp silica glass particles. It is awful. Also, there is no atmosphere to protect from cosmic rays. What local resources there are may be water. And the moon day is a month long. So it's a very different environment to live in, let alone work in. So where to next? Well, we look at the night sky and Mars looks very inviting. There is an atmosphere on Mars. It is too thin to offer much protection from cosmic radiation. But they tell us Mars may have water. Day and night is like Earth's, a little more than 24 hours, so we don't have to worry about rhythms. There's a high carbon dioxide, on the other hand, which may be good for plants, but not for people. The bad news is the soil, which looks reddish, has high iron content, and there is very little one can do with it. It is difficult to plant anything and expect it to grow. 50 years later, we are still planning, not because we cannot get there, but because we can only guess how we can remain healthy. Robotic landers provide crucial data, and lots more data is needed. We were designed to live on Earth. And space is not a friendly space for humans. So when we go beyond Earth, until we can figure out some other way to use local resources, we have to take everything with us. So we must keep asking questions. Do we plan to stay? Maybe we can adapt to living in space, on the moon or Mars. But so far, we have always expected to return to Earth. So we try to remain what they call Earth healthy. We cannot have it both ways, and we may never adapt. We just don't know. But why is the level of gravity so important? Because without it, if it's below threshold, as in space, where we have 10 to the minus 5 G, we call it microgravity, we have learned that health deteriorates rapidly because systems we normally need to function optimally, like the mass of muscles and bones that we need to stand on and walk on, the heart, as I said, gets smaller. When we return to Earth, we faint, just as if the nervous system is not used to maintain the body, balance and coordination are affected. Every single cell in the body is affected. Unless we have frequent stimulation provided every time we move in gravity. In space, I say the body goes silent. The adverse effects of living in space keep getting worse the longer we stay in microgravity. As long as humans have stayed in space continuously, and so far it's been a year, we have not adapted. The changes we see are very much like aging, and they happen much faster in space than down here on Earth. And we know that presumably we do not survive aging. So if we plan to return to Earth, we need to provide the stimuli our body needs that have gone silent in space. Adequate gravity stimulation to move in, change posture to stimulate our balance organs, to know up from down and direction, day and night to lie down and stand up, sleep, lying down, and be awake to move about. When I asked Oleg Atkov, cosmonaut cardiologist, who had spent 6 months in space on Salyut, what was the worst thing about being in space? He said to me, he thought about it. He said, having no sensation of putting my head down on a pillow to sleep. I had never heard that from anybody else, but it makes so much sense. Our head is the heaviest part of our body. Sensing this load is a function of gravity as well. Does it play a role in sleep? Makes sense. We do not sleep well sitting up or standing up. How much gravity, how often, how long is needed for optimal health? All remain to be determined. We do not know yet. The good news is that by going into space, we are discovering more and more about ourselves, our health here on Earth, and the necessity to use the gravity around us. How long does it take to adapt to space? More than 1 year, certainly, because that's all we've been there for. Maybe several generations. Maybe we never adapt. How long does it take us to recover? After short periods in space, 1 day of recovery for each day in space. After longer periods, years. Systematic research is needed. Our next generations of astronauts and scientists have their work cut out for them before we can confidently say that workers can live, work, and explore other planets. Thank you very much for this opportunity.